Please welcome to the stage Elizabeth Ellman, exhausted, eccentric, anxious.
When I nominated myself to be the keynote speaker at today's luncheon and humbly accepted this Pecha Kucha offer as a consolation prize, I didn't realize I'd be expected to share my sustainability story. Unfortunately, I've never had an inspirational experience in nature. The only animals I like are the ones that I eat. Other than a stint as an organic farmer, a compost tumbler in my childhood home, passive-aggressive comments doled out towards people who don't recycle, and an unfortunate situation with the waste haulers when I was in high school, I don't have much of a sustainability story. Fortunately, I do have a lot of deep-rooted issues, so I'll be speaking about those today. This is the culprit, my Queen Geraldine. Recently, she did one of the best things that a person can do for the planet. She died. The second best thing my grandmother did for the earth was inspire me to be an environmentalist. I learned from what she did and said, and I also did and said things, and perhaps that's why her hearing aids never seemed to work right when we spoke. She shared her wisdom with me from the beginning, and that's important, because what we say and what we do impact the people in our lives. About 30 years after this photo was taken, I tricycled to City Hall with nothing more than a helmet and the lessons Graham taught me for a job to say and do things to impact all of our lives. One of the world's leading climate scientists, Dr. Katharine Hayhoe, agrees this is important. She believes talking about climate issues equates with caring for others, and she encourages us to weave sustainability into everyday conversations by linking it to shared interests, like lower electricity bills, thriving gardens, and delicious vegan meals with friends. She says we have to connect heads to hearts to hands, that is, show people how the crisis affects them, and also present sustainable solutions as positive outcomes for a healthier, safer, cheaper, and all-around better life. Then we can help them understand why they care and empower them to take action. I think we need to be on both ends of the climate conversation. Listen and then spit it back out with our own spin to a new audience so the conversation keeps growing and evolving. That's what I'm doing with the jokes I'm trying out with you this afternoon, and also how I help keep Graham's legacy living on. So without further ado, a few of the ways she ruined me. No matter where I dined with Graham, and even if I was relegated to the children's table, I could take only the amount of food I could finish then or save and finish later, because, as her parents had taught her, there were starving children in Europe. In Judaism, we call this l'dor v'dor, from generation to generation. I like to call it the most prominent example of generational trauma she passed on. She instilled this in the grandchildren from a young age, and it resonated with me. Food waste is a horrible problem in this country. It's my way of reframing the Clean Plate Club to my community. She taught me that the oldest food in the freezer is still wonderful, especially if it has been sitting there for a few years, and even if there's ice crystals on top. She believed expiration dates are meaningless, and I don't disagree. This is Graham's prized cinnamon sugar shaker, which I'm certain belonged to her mother, but am uncertain when it was last refilled. Not shown is the macaroni and cheese my cousin took from Graham's stash directly after the funeral and served to her friends, despite it being 5 years after its best-by date. Thanks to Graham, reducing food waste has become a huge passion of mine. Using what we have, buying only what we need, and being innovative to make sure everything edible is consumed with only the seeds, shells, and stems composted. Thankfully, I did some research before telling people Graham's thoughts on freezer burn, but she was right. Reducing food waste is the second most impactful thing a household or individual can do to combat the climate crisis, according to the Project Drawdown team. I incorporate this into my conversations with others by first eating and then doing. For example, I've perfected my order at the Rusty Bucket to exactly what I know I can finish in a single meal. I take my used napkins and iced tea lemon wedges to go, and when questioned, I let the waitstaff know they will be turned into plant food instead of methane at the landfill. In addition to free meals, one of my biggest goals in life is for everybody who serves food to have a waste reduction program, and also composting, which is number 17 on the list. My second example of Graham being influential and turning me into an environmentalist is her belief that things don't need to be thrown away, because for everything there was always a reuse or a fix or extended life or space in a box for a memento or on a hook leading down to the basement, in case you can't figure out what that reuse is for half a century. This is the watering can I inherited from my grandmother. Notice the strategically placed tape covering a crack at the bottom of it. Despite it being best not to have a hole at the bottom of a receptacle full of liquid, Graham didn't believe in throwing things away. Why only water my plants when I could water everything from the spigot to my garden? She was cutest when she wholeheartedly believed that using and reusing things would undo all of the unsustainable things she did, like saving soap bits in a mesh bag to be reused, even though the soap came with her from across the country on an airplane. Or when she ate everything on her plate, but it was a steak. Or that if she bought lots of clothes, she'd save money on washing and drying. And if clothes were one size fits all, they could be shared among various size family members for eternity, regardless of whether or not shoulder pads are in season. I learned from Graham just how much we impact the people in our lives simply with what we do and say. By purely talking to me about what she was doing and living her life, she inspired me to make a difference, to hopefully impact everybody else's life. We can take a bite out of the climate crisis if we make sustainable choices, but we can be queens if we tell our friends about it. And if we intentionally speak to the people in our Rolodexes about making a positive change, we can make a positive change. So please have the talk. I hear from both parenting and health experts that if you're going to have the talk with your children, you should do it soon, before they hear about it from their friends, and it should be an ongoing conversation. And if you find it uncomfortable to bring up, you can try, have you ever wondered where fossil fuels come from? Or when a flower and a pollinator love each other, they want to spread their seed, and that's how we get more flowers. And if you know somebody who wants to talk to me, and he's somebody my grandmother would approve of, here's my contact information. Thank you.